All right, we got the senator now?
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's good to have you on today, Senator. Thanks so much for joining us. Sorry about the little technical glitches we had, but I appreciate you staying in there with us. So it's good to see you last week. I wanted to ask you about that, Cruising the Coast. What a great event that was.
Man, I tell you what, it's always an exciting time, but I think this year there were so many people that were ready to get out and move about, and it was just a great atmosphere. It was a fun time, and I encourage anybody and everybody to come down, and we spend a couple of days with us down here during Cruising next year. It's a lot of fun. Bigger
and better every year, it seems. Woody Bailey, the executive director, does a fantastic job, as do all the folks. I mean, let's face it, it is a combined effort of so many in the county and state and city governments, the organizations involved, and, of course, it was reported over 100,000 descended upon the coast to see these vintage vehicles, and some 9,000 registered, which broke a record. Is just incredible.
Yeah, I heard Woody say something that he thought that the number was like 15 or 20% classic cars do not register. But, I'll tell you, just walking around downtown Biloxi on Wednesday and downtown Gulfport, there were many, many, many more cars that were not registered, and that's unfortunate. But you know what? It's always about having a good time.
Yeah.
It was a great atmosphere for everybody, and I'm just glad it was pulled off, and it was a great event for everyone.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so I think the thing that's top of mind from a legislative perspective from folks across the state of Mississippi is this medical marijuana program. I know Representative Lee Yancey and Senator Blackwell, they're ready to get something going. God bless them. They have worked diligently and unselfishly, contributing lots of their personal time in the drafting of the bill we have today. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that we are really, really close, thanks to the work that those two gentlemen have put together and working with the leadership to try to come up with a plan that will just establish a medical marijuana program. I don't think that there's any expectations that it's going to be a perfect program. I think we'll be modifying this program for years to come. But right now, we've got a bare bones system that will allow the regulatory agencies to start issuing permits and start the process down the road. And we want to do it in the best way possible. And I think that what they've come up with is something that's good for the state to work with and for us to get started with.
Yeah, sounds like it. Senator Chad McMahon was on with Paul Gello this morning, and one of the things he pointed out that he did not support was this $15 excise tax. Have you heard anything else from your peers over there in the Senate or even in the House about that? Has that become sort of a bone of contention?
No, I don't know if it's really a bone of contention. I think that there are a lot of people who have opinions about that.
Yeah.
I believe that the program, just based on the revenues that other states have generated from a pure medical marijuana program, if we're comparing, apples to apples with other states, I don't believe that it's going to generate the huge amount of revenue to the state that people have spoken about in the past. And I think that this excise tax is something that's middle of the road when compared to other tax rates across the country. And I think it's something that's going to be necessary for us to be able to manage the program effectively and to make sure that we have the resources to run a program efficiently.
Yeah.
I don't want to run a bare bones program out of whoever is going to be the administrator of this and the regulatory agencies involved. We want to make sure they have the resources to manage it properly. I don't want to end up with another ABC situation.
Yeah. And so the governor, I think his recent statements about the prospect of a special session are that there are three main areas of concern that he cites: the level of THC dosages, the amount of marijuana that can be purchased and provided to people, and then who would be eligible in the program. So he says he's not comfortable calling a special session until those three issues are hammered out and I guess there's some consensus reached, knowing that the votes are there and something can happen. He's been pretty clear. He won't call a session until he knows we got all the votes Are you hearing that those items are being debated and hammered out?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that there's some discussions about that, but this is not, this is what the whole process of the legislature is all about, and how we pass bills. We debate it, we debate these issues, and we get to a general consensus.
Yeah.
So I think that the legislature is ready to get to a special session, ready for one to be called, and I think that these issues that the governor have brought up are very important. But I think it's something that can be handled in a timely manner. And I don't believe there's been any firm lines drawn in the sand by anyone at this state in the game. And
yeah.
I think it's just time to go ahead and let's get it done and let's get it passed. We're back in January to fix it, however, which way we feel necessary. I'm sure that will happen anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I think the governor, and just your opinion on this, I think he's acting appropriately here when he's getting information that's being fed to him from the leaders in the chambers are saying, hey, we're not quite there yet. We got some of these issues to hammer out. And the concern and risk, of course, is that you call a special session, you can't get anything done, and we spend a lot of time and money just spinning our wheels. That seems to be the right play, don't you think?
Well, I certainly can't speak for the governor, but I do believe that it's time to get this program started and get it up and running. And I think that that you could easily have a meeting with the parties that are involved and get this hammered out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And draw a line in the sand as far as the timeline is concerned. Go ahead, call the special session and say, I'm going to call it for next week. I expect these issues to be resolved by Monday of next week, and let's move on. But I think Mississippians are, especially those that work so hard and feverishly to get this done. I know that I've been hearing from them, and I know my other colleagues have as well. And it's time to get this resolved.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. We got a break on us right here, and you joined us a little late. Can you hang on with us? We got a couple more questions for you. Want to find out what's on your radar for 2022? If you can hang on, that'd be great. We've got Senator Scott DeLano as our guest here on Middays. We'll take that break right now. We'll come right back. Mississippi, our guest is Senator Scott DeLano from Harrison County. So something else, Senator, that I know is of concern in your neck of the woods in coastal Mississippi is the rising rate of insurance on real estate. What do you know about that is of concern, and what can we do to address it?
Yeah, that's been an issue since Katrina, and it's been something that we've worked on through the Coast delegation for a while to try to help the Department of Insurance and the other private insurers in our state help them come down here and start writing additional policies. The wind pool has done an extraordinary effort, and that's the residual plan that when you can't get insurance from the private markets, you have to resort to going into the wind pool. And of course, after Katrina, as most people know, there was a huge surge in new policies that were written in the wind pool plan. And over the years, the market has come back, and we've done some remarkable efforts through the wind pool board to depopulate. They don't want business in that particular plan. Mm-hmm. They want to shift it over to the private market, and there have been a lot of companies that have come in to write. So Windstorm has kind of had its opportunity to mature a little bit post Katrina. The new one is the flood issue, and then FIP, and how that's going to impact residential as well as commercial markets down here. And some of those new rating plans just started off on October 1. The stories that I'm hearing from most of our insurance companies down here is that yes, there's going to be some increases, but realistically, it's probably for the best. They're going to go to actual risk modeling for structures, and instead of trying to paint with a broad brush and say, everything in this gray-colored area on a map is, has one rate, and then this other shade of gray is going to have another rate. They're really going down and using newer technologies to get down to an X, Y, and Z coordinates to help drive the market into understanding what the actual risks are for those individual policies. So yeah, we're going to see some NFIP policies that are going up. The good news is that we're starting to see private markets that are coming in and writing wind and flood. And while it may not be in the same policy, just the fact that we're having the private market come in and cherry pick, even though they are cherry picking the lowest risks, they are able to come in and do that and provide some lower premium costs. But I think to your point and to the message that people that they need to know, while there have been a lot of misleading information saying that rates have not gone up on the coast, premium costs for homeowners and commercial has gone up in some cases as high as 30% over the past 3 or 4 years. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. Yeah. And that's something that is very, it stymies our real estate market. Even when we're having, relatively robust times, it makes it extremely difficult and it increases our cost of living down here, certainly.
Wow. Yeah. And I wonder how much these guys are factoring in. I'm talking about the underwriters and so forth. If they're factoring in this whole climate change issue, if that is sort of in the algorithms, for rating and so forth. A lot of talk about that I've heard in the insurance industry, and now we've got even federal regulators that are considering instituting reporting any sort of resilience that a company may implement to climate change as part of their annual report. Just to state that and disclose that is becoming such a hot topic, hot issue. Are you hearing any of that from the insurance folks?
Well, I do talk to quite a few insurance people and speak to them regarding the different risk modeling programs that they use for their individual plans. And I think that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that if you include a risk factor for climate change, that you're probably going to be able to collect more premiums. And I think what you and I would try to argue is that you want to see the proof that climate change for a policy that lasts a year in an envelope of time is going to be will impact the risk of a particular structure. I just don't see that. I don't see that correlation when you're speaking about a 1-year period for an insurance policy. So, I think that there are a lot of factors that go into that modeling. But I will have to tell you this. I've watched this over the past 12 years, being in the legislature and being on the insurance committee, and I've been pretty impressed with the changes in technology that have been used to assess risk. And then also, we've done a lot in our communities, and this can't be stressed enough, that after Katrina, we changed our building codes. We hired flood managers in each one of our cities, and those types of policies that have been implemented have shown NFIP and FEMA that we have done what we can in our communities to minimize flood risk and or wind risk, and we're starting to see some of those activities impact the amount of discounts that we are receiving on policies here on the coast, and that results in premiums that are paid. So, the message "Build Back Stronger, More Resilient" is being heard. And, the message that I think I tell every single person in South Mississippi is every year you should go out and you should shop your insurance policies, all of them, and find out who can give you the best policy and give you the protection that you're wanting, and be very careful of the deductibles that you're talked into. Anything over, honestly, a 2.5% or a 3% deductible could come back and bite you, or bite a typical homeowner in South Mississippi. If you have a windstorm event that you lose your roof, generally speaking, you're not going to get any proceeds from an insurance claim to replace your roof because of the higher deductibles that are charged for windstorm events.
Yeah.
So people need to be very careful not to get lulled into lower premium costs by a 5% or 7.5% deductible.
Yeah, that's good.
Those are things that we talk to our constituents about frequently.
Yeah, that's good advice, and that's so right. And a lot of times you don't really dig into those details until you need it. Then you find out, and you're pretty disappointed, peeved when you realize what you've signed up for. So it's absolutely good advice, and hopefully the good insurance folks out there, they're pretty careful to advise of all that and guide their customers, and so hopefully they're taking that advice that you're giving them. That's good from you. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so a couple other things that kind of popping up. We got a couple of minutes here. We've got tax reform that over there in the House, the Speaker of the House is really pushing pretty hard for. Had some hearings at the Capitol a couple of months ago. Senator, and that was from both chambers. Senator Harkins presided over those. What are you hearing? What do you think? What's your position on that?
Man, I tell you what, those are anytime that we can talk about how to make a better tax code for our economic environments and for the financial well-beings of taxpayers, I think that's a great discussion to have.
Yeah.
And I look forward to continuing those conversations. I think that we're getting closer and closer to a better understanding of what an overall tax program or tax, or especially an income tax elimination, will provide for our state. And also, I think that there's this anticipation that the state's going to see this windfall from medical marijuana, as we talked about before. I just do not see that. I'm one who thinks it's going to be very difficult for our state to take a medical marijuana program and receive any more than $20 million to our general fund. So I would like to see what our revenues look like and look and see how this income tax change and the reduction or removal of income tax, how that would impact the general fund, and then also what are the things that we can do throughout the rest of the general fund to control costs and control rising costs. And I think that's very important.
Sounds like a plan. I agree with you. By the way, before we go here, I also agree with you on the estimate of the revenue we'll receive from medical marijuana. I kind of pegged it at $24 million, so I think you and I are in the same ballpark. But, Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
You got it. We'll be right back with more talk here on Middays and some Earth, Wind, and Fire tickets. Stay with us.